Hi, Bold Betties team. Took a look at your ethics submission and thought I would give you some quick feedback. Let me put us on share the screen so we can look at it together. Basically, you did a very good job. This is an A paper, and you're absolutely headed in the right direction with this. Let me get this a bit bigger for us here. Yes, I will do it the old-fashioned way there. Okay. I have two things in particular I want to talk to you about. Remember we talked about how you don't need to tell us so much about um, content of the papers we have you read or the material we have you read. And I suggested that you look at it from a CEO's perspective. This is what you do too much of in this very first paragraph. You say in here, one part of the research in particular, which should be considered from an ethical perspective or standpoint, you say that right here, is the personality assessment. That's all you need out of this paragraph. You don't need to tell us you used Laura Nash's 12 questions for examining the ethics of a business decision. Of course you did, because I asked you to read that and I asked you to use that. You don't need to tell us that. You don't need to tell a CEO that that's what you use. What you need to tell a CEO is our focus needs to be on personality assessment from an ethical perspective. In this paper, that's what we're going to talk about. Done. So this whole first paragraph really is unnecessary. Learn to eliminate that kind of stuff. It takes time to read. It takes time for an executive to get through it, and they're going to feel a little frustrated getting there because they're going, well, it's not telling me anything about what needs to happen. In business writing, what's vital is giving the key information only that your boss needs so that he or she can make a decision about how to move forward. Don't tell them stuff like, well, I read this in this book, and so this is the book I looked at and stuff, especially when the boss gives you the book, right? They would hope that's the one you read and that's the one you looked at. So that's the biggest weakness in this paper, and it's not a huge crime, and it's more than offset by all the rest of the work that you've done in here. And I'm not going to go through it piece by piece because there's really no need, because you wrote well and you outlined the concerns and issues very well. Let me talk to you a little bit about ethical considerations in doing research. Yes, you absolutely must protect the identity of the people with whom you're doing research. So if you are making an assessment of the Big Five personality survey, then you have to ensure the people that are writing it know that that's going to be private information. Now, when you use it to determine what kinds of personalities successful people at Bold Betties have, you don't actually ever need to identify any one person. And what you need to do is have all the data about each of the leaders, and then you amalgamate it. You put it together, and it gives you a rough idea of what the perfect, let's say, Bold Betties leader, what their personality is like. And then you can split it in this way. You can say, okay, these are the Bold Betties leaders that people are struggling with or that are having trouble getting more Bold Betties to join their divisions and get involved in it. And here's the personalities of the ones that have the highest scores and that tend to get the most members. Now you can see if there's a distinction between the two. What I mean is there something that's different about the basic personalities of the successful leaders versus the unsuccessful leaders? But you don't need to know the names of the people that you actually had fill out the survey. And so you can solve that identification problem that you correctly point out that you don't want people to know. And so now you have the results of the research and you move forward and you say, well, here's a recommendation with the Big Five. Let me give an example. We want women working as leaders who are high on extroversion. Then when you do hiring decisions, you bring in somebody and say, look, we're going to make an assessment using this instrument This instrument is going to be used to assess different facets of your personality because we've identified specific facets of personality that make a successful Bold Betties leader. And what we want to do is ensure that you have the kind of personality that's going to succeed at Bold Betties. And we really believe it's important that we have correct fit between the employees of the organization and what the organization's needs are. And now you've identified why you're using a personality assessment, and the people that are applying can go, okay, they're not just doing this willy-nilly, there's a specific goal. And you now need to offer them the choice of opting out and saying, I really don't want to apply, and I'm really not interested. And that, in a sense, covers the concern that you raise somewhere in here. I don't remember, but I remember the specific concern about discrimination. You can say, for this job, we need somebody who has a very fine hand because we need them to do excellent calligraphy, and people that don't do good calligraphy can't fulfill the position because the position demands somebody who can do calligraphy really well. Well, you can also put in your job descriptions the fact that we need people who are extroverted here. And that doesn't mean we don't like introverts. We just know that people that are extroverted do better in our organization. And so we would like to help introverts, as an example, from getting into a place where they're not going to be happy, they're not going to be comfortable, they're going to get really frustrated, and we're going to be in a position to go, we can't really work with them, and if we hire them, then we're going to end up having to let them go eventually, because our experience is that people who are high on extroversion are more successful in this job. Having said that, I really want to qualify this. Extroversion isn't necessarily a good thing. Some people argue and have shown that teachers who are a little more introverted tend to actually be better teachers. Yeah, when they're interacting with students like you and I are, a certain amount of extroversion and excitement about talking with people is vital. But introversion is valuable because when we finish with the classroom, we go into a quiet place and we become more contemplative, which allows us to think more about how did that go? What can we do to make the classroom better? Extroverts, they tend to skip over that kind of thing. They're a little bit busy trying to get involved with more and more people, and they don't like being alone so much and looking at things in detail. Again, this is very much of a generalization here. I get that. But my point is simply this. Neither introversion or extroversion are inherently bad. They're better and worse in a given context. And it's quite possible that when you do the research at Bold Betties, you might find with the big five that in fact your most successful leaders are extroverts, and therefore you want to encourage extroverts to hire. As a final point, of course, the ladies that you do have working for the organization, if you find that, in fact, extroverts are the better leaders, keep in mind that introversion and extroversion are pretty core personality traits. And it's pretty much impossible to get an introvert to become an extrovert. So, of course, you can't walk into one of the Bold Betties and say, hey, listen, you're introverted, so you're fired. That is unethical and illegal. And what Bold Betties has to do is they have to keep working with those people, and they can't just outright fire them, although they can, what's called in the HR parlance, try to counsel them out of the organization and suggest that they might be happier and more successful in another one. And if they agree that they want to leave, or they're willing to leave and see that, in fact, they would do better in some other kind of a position, then you're good. But you just can't walk in and say to Diane, we notice you've got a high score in introversion, you're out of here. That is both illegal and, in my opinion, much more importantly, really rather unethical. So You've identified the important ethical issues in here. You did a really great job. You're bang on about what those issues would be with the big five. You described how to handle them really well. I've tried to show you maybe a little bit more in depth what some of the ethical considerations might be when you're doing research using an instrument such as the big five. And I've tried to point out that you do need to be careful. You need to ensure privacy, as you point out in your paper, when you're doing an assessment of the ladies who are working for the Bold Betties organization. And from that perspective, you've done an excellent job. This paper is an A paper. I urge you to keep moving forward in this direction and working to make your stuff really good. So let me stop sharing here, and you can look at me again. Hooray. Excellent work done. I'm really looking forward to your final presentation. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with that, and stay the course.